네, 안녕하십니까. 본격적인
Hello,
패널 토론을
everyone.
시작하기에 앞서 간단하게 발표를
Before
하도록
we go
하겠습니다.
on to the panel discussion, I would like to give some short remarks. In 2015, I was the Secretary General of the International Design General Assembly, held in Gwangju, and prepared the event. Victor Margolin, a world-renowned design historian and theorist who had just published History of World Design 1 and 2 and also participated in Gwangju as a speaker, unfortunately was unable to move due to an accident in Gwangju and died in 2019. The History of World Design, which was originally planned to end in Volume 3, has thus not been published yet. Victor Maglin said, "What we call design today is constantly linked to the basic human desire to organize a material environment for survival." Furthermore, Maglin defined two types of design: design with small d. According to his definition, design as an act of creation for people to always meet their needs and construct the environment, and design with big D, which is related to today's mass production and mass communication. It is divided into these two types of designs. According to Marglin's analysis, design has always been the center of cultural creation. However, he said that design is marginalized only by artistic or aesthetic practices, preventing all designs and design behavior that do not fit into these categories from being recognized as design. One of his purposes in publishing the History of World Design was to prove that design and its history were inextricably related to economic, political, and cultural structures of the past. David Kelly, who founded IDEO through a merge with ID2, established a design university at Stanford University and used the name D School. In this process, he said that in order to explain the difference of D School with other design universities, he found himself using the word thinking as a continuous act that designers must engage in. In this way, design thinking has been established as an important term to explain small d.
Design thinking
process
inspiration, ideation,
It would be more desirable to be understood as a process, as a system that overlaps three areas: inspiration, ideation, and impression, rather than a series of orderly steps. Inspiration is the process of motivating problem solving and finding new opportunities. Ideation refers to the process of creating, developing, and testing ideas, and implementation refers to the process of linking these design projects into the lives of real people. It is interesting that these three areas do not always proceed sequentially. For a long time, design has been recognized as a tool to solve problems in the form of product spaces, systems, models, and experiences. In this era, design has an implementable range that can cause substantial changes in various social fields. As Margolin mentioned, the biggest and most important problem that design needs to solve as a basic desire to organize one's material environment for survival lies in the real world. Problems in society and the environment are overwhelming humanity more than ever before, and design is in the best position to solve these problems. Design thinking as a problem-solving tool involves evaluating known aspects of the problem to identify more ambiguous and hidden causes in the steps to redefine the problem. The goal is to repeatedly understand problems, venture beyond prejudices, and analyze several aspects to identify the root cause of the problem. By challenging existing hypotheses about the problems, design thinking provides new means of thinking and action beyond existing thinking patterns. The most important thing in this process is a people-centered approach. It analyzes how people understand and interact with existing problem-solving methods and discovers the disadvantages and new opportunities of existing solutions. Therefore, it is very important to collect design cases and understand how existing solutions have tried to solve problems. The Seoul Metropolitan Government has been hosting the Universal Design International Seminar since 2013, and since 2017, it has expanded its scope to hold the International Forum on Social Problem-Solving Design. Last year, these two seminars and forums were combined and held as the Seoul Design International Forum. Through these forums and seminars, we have discussed various ways and cases of problem-solving through design and design thinking in the international community and in Korea. area. The most important part of preparing for this year's forum was how to link these designers' efforts and knowledge with one another. We ponder on how we could make the forum into a platform that could lead to inspiration, the first area of design thinking, instead of just becoming a one-time event. In line with these thoughts, the Seoul Design International Forum's website is not a website just for the event, but a digital platform that organizes and archives the presentations of speakers from previous forums and continues to introduce and share design discussions and cases in various areas of small d. We are happy to officially announce the opening of the Seoul Design International Forum's digital platform today. There are still many shortcomings, but I hope that this platform will allow various discussions to take place. If we take a look at this site, it is like the following. In addition to the discussions that are taking place right now, we have archived previous presentations and we have included special interviews. Social problem-solving design and universal design cases also have been added to the website. Design itself serves the function of connecting. It connects people with products, with services, and with other people. In other words, products, spaces, and surfaces that are not connected to people lose meaning. The connection leads to empathy and a desire to make the world a better place. Therefore, what connection aims for is empathy, and value is created where there is empathy. The theme of this forum is Reconnect Design as a Value Creator. It is a question of how design will create value by linking past forums with today's forum, hardware and software, virtual and real worlds, industrial and public sectors, and various areas such as municipal and civil society. And what and how should we connect with various problems arising from global crises such as pandemics, global warming, to solve social problems exposed to our society? In order to solve social crises such as global warming and pandemics and social problems, what should be connected in what ways? What should be connected to drive attractiveness in cities by providing citizens with a new level of experience while pursuing values based on inclusion and recovery, fairness, and empathy? This forum started off with these questions. Of course, it is not easy to answer these questions. The interests of social problems are becoming more complex due to the deepening complexity of society and the innovation of technological development and the explosion of information. We say we live in a hyper-connected society, but rather this connection complicates the problem. Social media created to connect people has made us more isolated, and connection platforms have also become a market that uses personal information as capital. Nevertheless, I think the reason why we have to talk about connection again is because of the value of connection. Steve Jobs said, "Creativity is just connecting everything." Creativity is a phenomenon that occurs through connection and cooperative interaction and is the result of recombining or transforming existing things. The value of connection is creativity and imagination that shares and spreads each person's thoughts. The Seoul Design International Forum expects citizens and municipal governments to become a platform for connecting knowledge to solve various social problems based on creativity and imagination. Thank you.
So we are joined by the panel discussants, also the speakers. So before we begin our panel discussion, I delivered a short presentation. So the Seoul Design International Forum 2021, the theme is Reconnect Design as a Value Creator. So if the main goal of design is to create new value, in other areas, I'm sure in others, value is also created. But what sort of value should design create? And when we look at it from a business perspective and also a public institution perspective, how would the process of creating value be different between the public and private sector? So I'm Professor Baek Jun-sang from Yonsei University. So in terms of the process of creating value, identifying value and creating value and providing value would all be part of this process. And I would like to touch on 3 points. So in terms of identifying or capturing the value from the public sector, the value should be something that citizens can experience and something that citizens need. So it's about really bringing value to the problems that citizens experience in their lives. So we talked about user-oriented design, but it's not that easy because if you're trying to provide service, you want to provide convenient service, but you have to overcome silos between different government agencies and office, and you have to really try to understand what citizens want in order to identify the values that citizens want. And I think that in terms of creating value, it's important to induce the participation of citizens. You have to create value together with the citizens. And in order to do that, the capabilities or capacity of citizens is very important. You need to have capacity building in place. And there also needs to be support from the non-government organization, from the civic society. And there needs to be a platform where citizens can voice their ideas. And there needs to be fair distribution of opportunities for citizens to take part in these processes. So I think that would make the process more participatory and more democratic, and we need to have a public platform that enables this. And also, in terms of providing value, I think we have to think about fair access. So we need to provide value to citizens and also to the vulnerable groups in our society. We should not forget them. So there is a lot of case studies regarding COVID-19, especially a lot of people talk about how the digital divide is beginning to become wider under COVID-19 pandemic. And there are groups of people who lack digital literacy. And so we should try to find out what they need, provide the services they require. I think that from a public perspective, that would be part of the process of creating value. So that's all I have for right now.
Thank you very much, Professor Baek. So value created from citizens' perspective and the importance of value created for those who have been left out was mentioned. And in the previous presentation, Mr. Lee talked about a navigation service for the visually impaired. And we would like to hear from CEO Lee of value being created in this area.
So as Professor Baek mentioned, I think from corporate's point of view, we have to create value that our clients want or customers want. And of course, businesses will focus on the customer. But the value that we create, I think, interacts with the value created by the public sector. So we're looking at vulnerable groups and visually impaired people. So in the beginning, they were our customers, but they are also members of our society. And it was a service targeting the most vulnerable groups in our society, but our services have grown to target many different people. So because we're a startup, we can't solve all of the problems and deliver values to everyone. But because we are creating value for the most vulnerable groups and creating value for them, the value, I believe, will evolve and grow. And that is what we are focusing on. So thank you. So I think in your presentation you talked about creating mobility, providing mobility information to the vulnerable groups, and you talked about how that can be applied to AI technology and expand your services to other members of society.
Going on to the next question. It has only been about 15 years since public design and social design was a concept that was adopted into national organizations and public institutions. And now governments and municipal governments are setting up organizations on public design. When the government or municipal governments set up design organizations, what should be the priority? And there are design organizations in companies and businesses. And what is being considered first and foremost when such organizations and projects are set up? And compared to private organizations, are there differences for public organizations? So I would like to hear from Executive Hwang from LG Electronics. Could you share with us your experience?
일단 이제 그 변화라는 거는 이제
First of all,
면역성이 높지는 않은 것 같아요.
on change, I don't think companies and the private sector have a lot of resistance to it, and it takes time to adopt and embrace change. So I don't think there's a big difference between public organizations and private companies when design organizations are set up. It's very important, first of all, to have that, and you need to have a top-down effort. When a new organization is set up and the R&Rs of that organization are fixed for that organization to play its function, you need the support from the top. So an organization and an institution, the top management and the leaders need to understand design. And if they have that type of understanding, the organization can quickly adapt.
그러한 새로운 조직이 생겨났을 때 초반에 이제 소프트 랜딩이라는 어떤
And when that new organization is set up, you need to have a soft landing.
조직이 새로 생겼을 때 그 조직의 어떤
When the design organization is first set up, there should be separate budgets set aside for them, and they should have their own HR authority. It's important to have some consideration for this newly set up organization. Thank you, and I want to ask a follow-up question. LG Electronics, what is the position of the design organization? For example, is it a central organization, or I'm sure LG Electronics has many projects that it carries out. So are there design organizations that are involved in these different projects? So is it more centralized or decentralized? LG Electronics is a company that adopted industrial design for the first among private companies. It has a long history, and during that history, it has gone through various changes. We have a metrics organization at the moment. It is connected to business units, and at the same time, it is also being operated independently. So it's not completely centralized or decentralized. It is a hybrid type of organization. Thank you. The reason why I asked this question again is because in Seoul Metropolitan City government, it has the cultural department, and underneath there is a design department. And all of the projects that the Seoul Metropolitan government carries out is related to design, though. And design policy is being carried out by Ms. Lee, your department. So in Seoul City, I understand that there were some changes to the design organization structure. we want to use the expertise of that design organization, yet it has to be operated in an efficient way. So what efforts have been put in by the government, metropolitan government, in order to add efficiency and to improve the professionalism of the organization?
So we had the division that overlooked all design, but now the design policy division is under the cultural headquarters. But design does not refer to just one area. It touches on all these different areas. And we are engineers that actually maximize the value that we create. So when you're doing projects, you're not just meeting design experts. You meet people in social welfare, you meet architects, you meet many different types of people. And of course, we would like to recruit all of these experts into our organization, but we can't, realistically speaking. So we have external networks that we utilize, and they help us in implementing our projects. Of course, they don't have an internal role, but our staff are able to connect to and talk to these external experts, employ design thinking, and they are very open-minded thinkers, and so we closely cooperate with them, and that's part of how we operate the design policy division. If you look at the private sector, they have very clear definition of who their customer is. So in terms of your marketing campaign, you want to provide what these clients or customers prefer. It's very clear-cut, but that is not the case for us. So we want to make sure that all the citizens can enjoy the services that we provide. We think about inclusion, and as an effort, we try to make sure that a lot of different people take part in the activities of our design organization. So that's not just, I think, a challenge for just our decision. I think it's something that Seoul Metropolitan Government should think about. So, of course, a close connection within Seoul Metropolitan Government organizations is important, but also close cooperation with external organization is important.
Thank you for the detailed explanations. I think that unlike companies in the public sector, when they pursue design, the biggest difference is that it's not a design just proposed by experts. The design process must include citizens. So the agenda has to be defined with the citizens. It has to be discussed together, and the solution has to be found with the citizens so that these solutions can be close to the lives of citizens. And this will let the citizens be more accepting toward that design. And when public design is being carried out, just as Ms. Lee said, expert citizens and various departments and officials from these different departments need to cooperate and co-work. So the municipal government's design team should be able to integrate and to connect with these different players, and they should be that connecting point. Therefore, when an organization is set up, designers who are good in communicating and planners who also can work with others well should be included. Thank you.
So, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the Seoul Design International Forum launched its online platform today, and of course the COVID-19 pandemic had an impact. So the online platform of the Seoul Design International Forum was created to connect different case studies and to spread knowledge. So we're trying to expand knowledge through the online platform, and there are many different attempts. So for the online platform of the Seoul Design International Forum to enhance the competitiveness of the city and to play a central role in realizing the design vision of Seoul City, which is to create a city where all of the citizens live a happy life. What sort of efforts should we make? Where should we focus our efforts? So I would like to ask Mr. Lee Si-hwan this question.
저희가 예를 한번 들면
So if I can give you an example.
사회적 문제를 고민하시는
So there is a social venture group organization called SIRI where we discuss social issues. We select an agenda. So we choose a what and then we examine hows. So basically the question is how easy is it to share information, and the what, the question should be defined, and you also have to exchange information on how you're going to address the what, the problem. Then I think you can move on beyond just a forum, and you can create many opportunities to sort of move forward through the platform. So maybe the platform could provide a template to share information or easily upgrade information. So thank you very much. I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Hwang Sung-kwol.
저희가 이 포럼을 그러니까 온라인 그 플랫폼으로서의 포럼을 운영하면서
So,
주의 깊게
as we
노력을 좀 기울여야 될 것.
operated the online forum, what are some precautions that we need to be aware of? Before talking about the platform, I think we need to consider the unique aspect of Seoul. Seoul has a Seoul city and 20-some satellite cities, and there are 20 bridges that connect Seoul with the satellite cities, which is quite unique. And we see crowding of Seoul City, and it's an area where many people want to come. So the challenge is the diversity of Seoul, and Seoul metropolitan area includes various generations. When compared with other cities, the spectrum of diversity is extremely wide for Seoul City, and we have various cultures within the city and various generations. So I think it is important to have a platform, and that platform can be a physical one and also an online one. One of the most important thing is respecting and embracing these different aspects, the diversity. We use the term MZ generation, and this generation spans 15 years. There's a term that is popular in different generations, and it is important to include content that can satisfy the different tastes and needs of these different generations. Therefore, you need to have content that meets the taste and needs of these different generations, but satisfying these different needs will be difficult. So, you may have various content domains, and you need to have a roadmap for that, and you should add on different domains according to the roadmap.
So different spectrums, different generation, and different cultures all need to be encompassed in this contents platform. So thank you for sharing with us your thoughts. So as we prepare for this online platform, we thought about how we could use this online platform to spread and connect different knowledge and information. And the professors who are taking part in our working group, I'm sure, felt a lot of pressure. But based on what you just shared with us, I hope that we can, emphasize connection and encompass a wide spectrum and continue to develop our online platform. So many people mentioned this already, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people are spending more time in their homes. When we think about public infrastructure, we usually think about public facilities, but because of COVID-19, citizens are now doing a lot of things online and offline. Students are already used to distance learning, and the metropolitan government is also making effort to provide various types of online services. Professor Kim Sang-kyun talked about metaverse, and so in this pandemic situation where digitalization is being accelerated, how can cities more actively address these changes, and what sort of efforts should cities make? I would like to invite Professor Peck to share his thoughts. So digitalization and the acceleration of digitalization, I think, means the acceleration of digital divide. I saw it on a newspaper article, and Igoni collection is being shown at a art museum. And if you want to see this art collection, those who have good daughters and good sons can only see this art collection because you have to do online reservation. And then when you try to get COVID vaccination, some people using macro automation program to reserve a vaccine, and they might, sell this opportunity to get a vaccine to other people. So the pandemic has shown us how big the digital divide or gap is, and I think everyone is realizing this. So in this situation, I think the role of the city or the efforts that the city should make is to enhance the digital literacy capabilities of citizens. Citizens are not just the consumers of digital technology. They can use the digital technology to solve problems. They can play a central role. So from last year, public libraries and NGOs have joined hands to create the Seoul Digitalization Innovation Center. So together with citizens, we're using digital technologies to address social problems, and we're creating models to this end. Citizens are engaging in various types of projects. So these projects, some of them address digital divide. So the elderly citizens, they might experience digital divide in their daily lives. They might have hard time using kiosk or their smartphones. We look into these issues and explore ways to address these issues. So I think once again, cities should focus on digital divide. And also those people who have been excluded from enjoying the benefits of digitalization, we need to enhance their digital literacy capabilities so that they can actively take part in addressing social problems. So I think this is one area where cities should make effort. Thank you, Professor Peck, for sharing your thoughts with us. So recently I went to a fast food restaurant. I saw a newspaper article, an elderly person couldn't order hamburger on an online kiosk. So there's a lot of digital technology advancement taking place, but there are problems with people who have low digital literacy who cannot enjoy the benefits of this digital technology advancement. We read and hear a lot about this. So the Seoul metropolitan government, when they provide digital services, I think they should be mindful of the digital divide that exists. Now I'd like to turn the mic to Professor Ju and ask her the same question.
Even before COVID-19, we talked about smart city, fourth industrial revolution, and technology development was expected to bring about various social changes. And just as Professor Beck said, due to COVID, this has become accelerated. Due to COVID-19, people had to accept these changes into their lives. With such a radical change, there are many side effects that occur. City information, you need to consider the side effects, and you need to minimize the side effects of such changes in technology. In digitalization, we need to check if there are any who have been left out, especially those in the vulnerable areas, and we need to consider digital literacy, and we need to think about whether people all have devices that can be connected with the internet, and if they have the space and technology to enable, for example, Zoom meetings. Are there any the elderly or those that are vulnerable, socially vulnerable, that cannot have access to this? In Singapore, for example, they wanted to increase digital literacy among the elderly, and for this, they provided training and education to the elderly in the neighborhood community centers, and for the poor, they would provide internet service at a lower price. On the other hand, I don't know about you, but There are so many Zoom meetings these days and online meetings. It is leading to fatigue. Like my eyes are strained and I feel tired of such online meetings. And we need to create urban spaces that gives rest for those who are tired due to such online meetings. And I am teaching at home, and my son is also in class via online. And I realize that it's not just a problem of technology and online access. You need separate spaces too. And thank you very much, Ms. Zhu, for your comments. And we also need parks and spaces where people can be relieved from their stress due to COVID. I think it's an infrastructure that we need. In addition to this, because of COVID, we can't travel. There are many restrictions. We may use digital technology to experience travel in an indirect way. There might be some plans from the Seoul metropolitan government. I understand that many digital programs are being carried out. Can Ms. Lee introduce them to us?
So Seoul City is also preemptively preparing for the age of digitalization. So we have a metaverse platform that we are preparing, and we'll be able to provide government services through that platform. And for our tourism program, we have a virtual Seoul playground. So it's a game where you can experience the beauty of Seoul. And then we also are testing or experimenting with providing online lectures. So the Seoul City government is also making preparations, and especially in the area of design, metaverse. In order to prepare for the creation of metaverse, we're looking at the UD program. So it's not just people who are physically challenged, but I think that ordinary citizens need to understand the real meaning of UD in order for UD to become meaningful. So we're trying to create spaces where people can really experience universal design. So design is based on persona, and it's about creating various values. From the design sector, service design or experience design, these are areas where I think we're well positioned to do something. So Seoul government is looking at working with other sectors to create all of this on the metaverse platform. So universal design projects are projects that the Seoul metropolitan government has been carrying out for many years. So the metaverse of Seoul metropolitan government, I think, is a very interesting idea. Professor Chu, Professor Peck talked about how there are people who have low levels of digital literacy or who cannot access digital technology. So I hope that the Seoul metaverse will enable the participation of these people. I think this is going to be the last question.
While preparing this forum, I worked with the professors of the working group here and considered what Seoul design is. What does Seoul design mean? And we need to define the vision and goal of Seoul design. When we plan such forums and online platforms, and when Seoul City carries out various projects, I think defining the vision and goal is important. In companies, they have vision statements and mission statements to set the direction of the company and to set their targets. Likewise, what needs to be considered when defining Seoul City's design vision and mission? Let's hear from Mr.
예,
성결황.
이렇게 예전에는 이제
Companies
다른 선진 기업들을 많이 참고를
in the
하고
past
거기서
would
이제
refer to other advanced companies. Apple Computer has this direction, so we should follow that direction, for example, or Tesla is moving toward that direction, so we should take reference and move in that direction, was the practice of the past. But now things are changing. We are no longer a fast follower. There are many areas where we are at the forefront. So there is nothing that you can refer to when you are at the front. So we need to change our attitude and stance. And Likewise, I have visited many cities, and I don't think there are many cities that Seoul City can't reference. There should be an absolute value that Seoul has, and for you to prepare that, it cannot be prepared and devised by downloading material sitting in front of your laptop. Rather, now you need to understand citizens, and we need to really understand what the citizens need.
저희 디자인 쪽에서도 이제 그런 경우가 있습니다. 이렇게 우리가
To
이제
explain further, in our design lab,
위해서 뭔가
we
디자인을 해야겠다.
want to design something for our target audience.
그 거리에 있는 사람들을 위해서 우리가
And in order to do so, for example, when we want to make a like a tent, we think about various things that we can material that we can get from our laptops. But when you go out to the street and ask those people, they have a different idea. So being an observer and actually being that person and being in their shoes, empathizing is a completely different thing, whether you're in an institution or a company. You should live as an actor. You need to immerse yourself in that field. It is important for you to really live in the other person's shoes. And instead of just sitting at your desk, we need to go out and experience firsthand. And you need to have that firsthand experience. That is a key word, having firsthand experience. And that needs to be a buzzword because we do no longer have references. We need to identify our absolute value and find policies that fit us. And by doing so, we can become an example for other cities and other countries now.
So be an actor and try to engage in different experiences and create new values. That is what is important. So Seoul City is no longer a fast follower. It is a first mover, so it needs to create these case studies and best practices. I really can relate to what you said. Mr. Lee, as CEO of a venture company, you're trying to create new services. So what are some of the directions that Seoul should pursue in terms of design? I don't know if this is going to be of any help, but so you can have a great vision and a great mission, and that is also important. But I think what is more important is that I think the current status is more important. The status quo is much more important in realizing the vision and mission. So you have to see the gap between your current status and your vision and mission. How many steps are left? And if you only look at the vision and mission, then maybe you might miss a few things. So those who are vulnerable, we try to look at those people, but we thought that if the system is not something that can be used by visually impaired people, we thought that it would be meaningful. So we had clear-cut steps in place. So first we were going to look at visually impaired people. We were going to look at physically challenged people. So I think when you have these different phases or different steps in place, it's easier to realize your vision and mission. And when we created this navigation service for those who are visually impaired, some of the stores actually don't want to take part in our service because they don't want the visually impaired people to come to their stores and get hurt. So it's not really about the speed of technological advancement. It's about how our society can accept these type of services. And so I think the awareness or the perception of our society is also very important in terms of realizing vision and mission. So you're saying that the speed of people changing the way they think, their perception is also important. So I agree with that. So we have to clearly understand where we are and then create steps to reach our vision and goals. So that was what you shared shared with us. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Professor Peck and the same question.
서울시의 그런 디자인 비전이나 미션을
The design vision and mission, when that's defined for Seoul City,
그런 사회 문제 해결 디자인의 노력을
I think that the
되돌아보면서
efforts that
성찰하고
Seoul City has carried out to solve the social problems through design should be reflected on. And we need to ask a fundamental question on why we are putting in so much effort toward this end. Social problems are becoming more difficult and complex. So aligned with this, designers should not just think about making things beautiful. They need to have a systematic approach to solve problems. That's the way things are evolving. And social problem-solving design or social problem-solving innovation should live up to the changing times. And that's the role of design, and that's the role of the public sector.
리더십이 바뀌면
When leadership changes, policies change, and design policies also change. That is a given.
우리가 이런 지금까지 쌓아왔던
However,
굉장히 좋은
we
모습을
should
지키고
also
보존하는 것도
preserve
굉장히 중요하다고
and protect
생각합니다.
all of the
그래서 저는,
outcomes and results that we have achieved thus far. I told you that we need to reflect on our past results, and that is because I think that Seoul City is playing the role of leader and not a fast follower, especially in social problem-solving design and innovation. While preparing this forum,
외국 연사분들께 이제 연락을 드릴 기회가 있었는데
I had an opportunity to contact foreign speakers,
어떻게 잘하고 있느냐
and they were asking us how we were doing and what we were doing. They were interested in what we were doing. So regardless of the leadership, we need to have consistency and vision, and such visions and missions should be continued and preserved.
네, 중요한 말씀을
So
하셨습니다.
thank you for sharing with us your insight. So you were talking about the role of design that encompasses the spirit of our times, and as we change, it should be a legacy and there should be a continuation. So I think that's what you were emphasizing. Last but not least, I would like to ask Professor Chu the same question. So I think Seoul City, when they define the vision and mission, it should be something that citizens can relate to. It should be something that can bring people together. So it should help people to culture their identity of the city and define their identity. So actually, we've been focusing on how people perceive our city, but people should love their city. I think people should have affection for their city, and I think that can lead to enhanced competitiveness. So we have to look at, how the citizens view our city and what sort of identity they want in the city. So Seoul City is a global city now, so we also have to look at climate change and SDG. We should also look at these global issues and look at design as a way to address these global issues. So in terms of resolving policies, we have to look at pragmatism and we also have to look at creativity in terms of implementing design-related policy. So thank you very much. I am sure that all of the insights shared by our panelists might be something that Director Lee is taking into consideration because as you implement design policies, I'm sure it's something that you want to reflect on. So with this, we would like to conclude the Seoul Design International Forum 2021. Thank you very much.